And welcome back to another video. In the last episode in this series I looked at the Lenco L85 turntable, entry level very much so, purchased for £65, and now I'd like to look at the next option in the ever increasing hi-fi circle. So the turntable I want to talk about today comes from Pro-Ject, an Austrian company who manufacture their turntables in Austria and the Czech Republic. Pro-Ject is somewhat famous for probably bringing vinyl back in the early 90s when CD was at its height. The Pro-Ject debut is still a very effective and commonly purchased turntable for many audiophiles, and they start at around £300 to £350. The E1, however, starts at £200, and now we're getting into a territory which is starting to compete with some of the plastic turntables from the likes of Audio-Technica, branded products from the likes of TEAC and Denon. However, what you're getting here is a well-engineered true turntable, entirely manual, but one that's going to do justice to your vinyl. If you're spending a lot of money on your vinyl, and let's face it, vinyl isn't cheap at the moment, then you want to use a turntable that does them justice. Now, something that's unique about this particular turntable is the use of an ABS plastic platter. You'll see that this doesn't have a great deal of resonance. It's lightweight, it's reinforced underneath with these strakes here, and this part sits on the sub-platter. This differs from the turntable platters provided with the majority of cheaper end turntables, which tend to be made from aluminium or steel. If you think about those particular materials, if you give them a little tap, you'll get a ringing sound. This platter has been designed in order to reduce that resonance. The E1 is a nicely built turntable. It comes with a high quality tone arm and a very, very good entry level cartridge. That cartridge is from audiophile and it's the OM5E. That alone will set you back around £65 in the UK. The OM5E is a very transparent, open and pleasing cartridge that produces really good musical playback. Now the E1, whilst being well made, is somewhat light. The plinth itself is made from some kind of composite material, and the entirety of the machine itself is very lightweight. This causes a particular problem that I'm not sure that Pro-Ject have fully worked out yet. When you try to remove the lid or lift the lid, the entire turntable sometimes comes with you. A little bit more weight into the chassis would definitely have been worthwhile. That said, I've resolved it by using the sticky pads under the feet, the type of sticky pads that you would use in a car for placing a phone on a dashboard, and this is a good interim solution. What I would have hoped, though, was the Pro-Ject would put some weight into the plinth to make the machine more stable. That aside, the playback from the E1 is exceptional. I've been playing it through an Audiolab 6000A amplifier, a very good amplifier that has its own phono input. Now it's important to notice there are two versions of the E1. One has no phono preamp built in, so you would need to use an amp like the Audiolab, which has its own phono preamp. And then there's an E1 with a phono preamp. In fact, there is a third version which includes both the phono preamp and a Bluetooth transmitter, but as I wouldn't use a Bluetooth transmitter, I'm not going to talk about that one today. There is competition at this price point at £200, £250. One of those that's recently been released is the Rega Planar 1 Green Edition. Now the Rega Planar 1 is a very good turntable made by British hi-fi specialist Rega, and one of the things that you may know about it is that it costs £299. So why am I talking about it as a competition for the E1? Well, Rega have introduced this green program whereby they take items such as plinths, tone arms, platters that have cosmetic defects and which can't be used in the regular brand new products, and they are creating these green edition turntables. So effectively you're getting a Rega Planar 1 that works exactly like a brand new one, and it is in fact brand new. The only difference is some of the components might be cosmetically marked. Now the planar one is available for £199, which is a very good bargain, but more relevant, for £229, the Rega Planar 1 Plus Green Edition is available, and that includes Rega's excellent built-in phono preamp. So if you are looking at the E1 as an option, think about one of those Rega Planars. Now, Pro-Ject are a very good manufacturer of turntables. They've been producing them since 1991, and they have pretty much owned the entry-level audiophile market for some time. That said, is the E1 worth your money? Well, if you're going to pair it with a modest amplifier, then I think yes. But there is, as I said, competition out there. Is it better than the Lenco L85? Yes, absolutely. Is it better than Audio-Technica LP60? Well, that remains to be seen. The majority of the LP60s I've seen have tended to be played through active speakers, and whilst that produces a very good and effective playback, I'm not a fan of active speakers, and I like to have an independent separate amplifier. So I've not actually heard an LP60 played through an amplifier. I think where the edge comes for the E1 is that OM5E from Audiophile is a superb cartridge. It's at home on a number of different turntables, and you could realistically use it on more expensive turntables and still get a good result. The other advantage that the E1 has is the option to change the cartridge, which is a more ready option than is available on some of those plastic turntables, which have very limited cartridge changing opportunities. Some competition for the E1 comes from Fluence, the Canadian brand. Their turntables are very popular, particularly in the United States, as they start at really good prices. They are manufactured in China. I have had a Fluence RT81, and I did actually end up returning it because of quality control issues. There was a problem with the tone arm in that it wouldn't freely move, as a result of which it skipped. That's not to say that that's a general quality issue around Fluence's products, but it left me with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, and I probably won't go back to them for a while. So, is the Pro-Ject E1 hi-fi? Well, I'd argue that it is, and I'd argue that pretty much anything that you decide is hi-fi is hi-fi. But yes, you are getting the reproduction in high fidelity, which is obviously what hi-fi really is. Use a good quality amplifier, use some good speakers. The speakers I've listened to the E1 on here are the Q Acoustics 3020i. That sounded easier to say when I was practicing it. The 3020i's produce a very decent sound. They're quite bassy, they're quite meaty. I do actually have them working with a Q Acoustics subwoofer here for this particular setup. But overall, the E1 with the Audio Lab and the Q Acoustics speakers does everything for music that I would want. Listening to something like The National's First Two Pages of Frankenstein, a fantastic album if you've not heard it. The nuance of the vocals, the sparseness of some of the musical arrangements, the piano tones in the opening track, the driving rhythms of some of the later tracks are all really well presented by the E1 Audio Lab and Q Acoustics combination. That said, I'm fully aware that the combination I'm talking about here is not a budget combination. An Audio Lab 6000A is going to set you back around about £650, and the Q Acoustics around £250. If you add the £200 of the E1 to that, and you're over £1,000. More realistically, I see the E1 being matched with a modestly priced amplifier from somebody like Sony or Cambridge Audio in that £250 to £300 bracket, and maybe something along the lines of a sort of Wharfdale Diamond 7s, which are available at that very popular hi-fi dealer that's in most towns these days, or something like the Wharfdale Diamond 9s, which are also very good speakers. Whatever you decide to do, I think the Pro-Ject E1 is a good purchase. It is manual. It will not return the arm to its stand at the end of the disc. So you do need to attend to your record to make sure that you don't damage your stylus when it reaches the end. It is lightweight, and as I said, there is that issue of it sliding around on a surface when you're using it. However, I've managed to resolve that with those sticky pads. It does have speed selector, so unlike projects of old, you don't have to move the rubber belt in order to change the speed, so that perhaps makes it more accessible for those people maybe moving up from something like an Audio-Technica LP60. Would I recommend that you buy it? Yes, maybe, but be aware that there are other turntables around. The Fluences, incredibly popular. They produce fantastic sound. They're weighty machines. They're not going to slide around on your desktop or your countertop. And think about somebody like Rega. And then within that £200 price bracket, you've also got products like the Sony, which has a Bluetooth transmitter, which that level of convenience, and it's fully automatic as well, is sometimes what people want.
Hopefully you'll join me for the next edition when I'll talk about the Pro-Ject debut Carbon DC. Until then, thanks for watching.